All right, so let's cover Bluetooth. And of course, we're going to start with our disclaimer. And our disclaimer is your mileage may vary. So the information contained in this class from anvcs.org is provided only as general information, which may be incomplete or outdated. We just can't predict how everybody uses this stuff, so we got to say that. And if you don't want your face to be recorded, because we are recording this class, please just turn off your camera or cover your camera, however you like to handle that. And let's move on. So also, if you want to visit our website, it's anvcs.org, if you want to get a hold of us by email, info@anvcs.org. And that one will automatically go to Shalini, Eric, and myself. All right, so let's give a quick, overview of what Bluetooth is. I think most of us have encountered Bluetooth. However, I mean, what does it really mean? Why does it really stack up against all these other wireless things that we're doing? So let's just touch on that real quick. So Bluetooth is wireless. It's meant to be a radio protocol, meaning that the rules and stuff behind it are meant to give us capabilities, but over radio frequencies. It's low power, and since version, I think it is 4.0, which came out in about 2016, we'll talk about that in a bit. It's been what they call Bluetooth LE, low energy, which means that the Bluetooth devices can operate on batteries now, and those batteries can last over a year. Which, when Bluetooth first came out, it was really trying to figure out how to position itself alongside Wi-Fi. And when they were doing that, they were trying to match Wi-Fi's capability as far as bandwidth, that type of stuff. But it just takes a lot of energy to do that. So when all devices were plugged in, that was fine. But as soon as we wanted to do portable devices and battery powered stuff, we needed to figure out a way of making it low power. And this is where Bluetooth really stepped in. Now we have like the low energy consumption, which is called BLE, Bluetooth Low Energy. And this means that the tiny batteries that can be in these very small devices can last a long time. And one of the things that we see there is like the Apple AirTags. I don't know if anybody's seen those, but you can put those like on key fobs, you can put them in luggage, you can put them in your wallet, all the things that you don't want to lose, but can typically misplace. You can put, these AirTags in them and easily find them. And that all happens through Bluetooth. It exchanges digital data. Now, that data can be a couple of things. It can be command and control data. And what I mean like that, it works kind of like a remote control. We can increase the volume of our TV. We can increase or decrease the volume of our headphones or our hearing aids. We can turn devices on and off. Just very minor things like that as far as remote controlling what they do. And typically how I like to use it is that when I'm riding in my motorcycle or in my car or something like that, I will have my Bluetooth paired with my earphones or with my car, and I can just have it skip songs. I can have it find a song, working with Siri, that type of thing. And I can do that all through Bluetooth. So I think that's a really neat way of doing command and control, but it also does content, meaning audio, voice, that type of thing. Diana, you've got a question?
Yeah, one time I had cheap earbuds. I didn't use them much, and I think you told me the batteries will die out. I mean, those things don't last long, right?
Well, it depends on how you did it. Like the cheap earphones where you had to replace batteries, those won't last long. But if you have, like rechargeables, I mean, those will last like a week, and you can just, recharge them every night or however you want to do that.
No, I
So,
mean the device that it was a very old earbud. It couldn't be recharged, so
uh,
I guess it just after a while, I didn't use it much, but it wasn't usable anymore after about 4 or 5 years.
yeah, and those batteries do eventually die. And I hate to say it, these things are not made to be repaired. They're meant to be just tossed away. They don't even have a good recycling program. So They typically get tossed away and we have to go buy new ones. And that's even the expensive ones by Apple, being they only last 3 to 5 years, and then we got to get new ones.
Wow.
And so, whether it's a cheap earbud or a an expensive one, they just don't last that long. And
Does that
it's because of
apply?
the size of the battery.
Yeah. Does that apply to the ones that are in a little case? I recently got, luckily not too expensive, but they're in a case and you can charge the case.
Yeah, so the rechargeable ones will typically last a little bit longer. However, the battery is so small in that it gets worn a lot, because it typically has to charge 100% and go all the way to zero. And rechargeable batteries don't like that. They like staying between 20% and 80%. But between 20 and 80%, they only have about half the battery life from one charge. So it's not practical for these small devices. So we put a lot of stress on the battery with every recharge cycle. So that's why they just don't last as long.
Thanks.
You're welcome. And when Bluetooth first came out, it was originally supposed to be a one-to-one protocol, meaning that one device connected to another device. That's changed since a version of Bluetooth 4, where we could have multiple devices, and it's really being changed now in Bluetooth 5 because they have a lot of things like oh, what is the one that we could go into theaters now and we can use it as hearing aid or hearing assistance, where that stuff is being broadcast by Bluetooth to many devices. So now we can go one to many or many to many because of the way the protocol has changed. But originally it was only device to device, trying to keep it dead simple. All right. So another protocol that we can compare this with and see, why is Bluetooth required versus Wi-Fi? And I like how this was just put side by side. This was actually from a whole video, but it went way too deep. But this was the summary. So Bluetooth is used for connecting devices together, where Wi-Fi is typically used for connecting devices to the internet. Okay, because we're going to go to the router, and the router is then going to get us to the internet. Bluetooth has a slower transfer rate and a shorter range, whereas Wi-Fi has a really big transfer rate right now, and it has a very long range. So if we look at the range, Bluetooth is typically within 30 feet. It really likes to be within 10 feet. That's where its sweet spot is. And Wi-Fi can go out, if you don't have any walls or anything in the way, it can go out hundreds of yards. I mean, it's a really long distance. What makes Wi-Fi and Bluetooth both shorter range is that they run into obstacles, and those obstacles will attenuate the signal. Bluetooth and Wi-Fi, when they're in their older standard, in the 2.4 gigahertz on Wi-Fi, they have similar things where that wavelength is long enough to get through walls, so it goes further. But it's also more subject to interference, because guess what other things run at 2.4 gigahertz are microwaves. So if we ever turn on a microwave oven, it can cause a lot of problems with Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. Okay, so just be aware of that. But Bluetooth, because it's aimed to be a lower energy consumption and more battery powered, it needs to be a slower transfer rate and a shorter range. Also, Bluetooth is meant to do things like put, things right in our head. I mean, like our earphones or hearing aids, those types of things. So they have to be a lot less transmitting power, because we don't want that power going into our brain. We don't want it literally heating up our brain like a microwave can do. And believe it or not, a cell phone, if you use it too much, it can actually increase the temperature of your brain a little bit, which is not healthy, which is why it's best to use a cell phone not directly next to your head, but and if you can, do it on a speakerphone or through earphones, is the safest thing if you're going to have long, drawn out conversations. But they've shown, I mean, studies have shown that if we're going to have conversations, less than 5-10 minutes on a cell phone, and they're very sporadic, that the health risk is extremely low. Um, However, for Bluetooth, they wanted to make that even less. So it's extremely low power, and the radiation that's coming out of it is much, much, I would say, softer, because there's not as much power behind it. But the thing to remember, both Wi-Fi and Bluetooth are what they call non-ionizing radiation, meaning that it's not like radiation like we're going to get from X-rays and things like that that can really damage tissue, because those are ionizing radiation. Okay, these are much different. This is simply a radio frequency. It can interact with things and slightly heat them up, but you really have to expose yourself for a long time to both of these. Bluetooth, though, is a lot safer to put right next to your head. All right. Bluetooth is less vulnerable to interference, where Wi-Fi, especially at 5 gigahertz and the new 6 gigahertz, is much more vulnerable to interference. Okay. The Bluetooth is, I said that backwards. I'm sorry. On Wi-Fi, the 2.4 gigahertz part of it is more vulnerable to interference, where Bluetooth is less so because of the distance between it and the devices. All right. On Bluetooth too, it's simpler to use, and you don't have to manage passwords. You don't have to know any of the protocols or anything like that. It just works. You don't have to worry about SSIDs or anything like that. With Wi-Fi, typically you have to manage all of that stuff. Bluetooth, and the only time it gets maybe a little complex is when we have to pair it. And in the old one, we actually had to have PIN numbers to pair it. But since Bluetooth 4, there's actually a built-in protocol now where once we have both things in pair and discovery mode, they just kind of negotiate. They put keys back and forth, and it's all taken care of. So we don't really have to worry about that. Okay. So I was talking about this health risk, and this is what I wanted to just give people an idea of what the difference is. And when they say test radiation, they're actually measured power, and the testing distance from the device was 8 inches. And you can see that this was 0.0013 milliwatts per centimeter squared. Okay. This is what they call a radiation flux. But you can look, this is like a couple orders or orders of magnitude higher to get to Wi-Fi, and it's the same for a cell phone. They're both about 0.45. So Wi-Fi and cell phones are a completely different level of power than Bluetooth. And that's because of the application. Bluetooth's meant to be right next to our bodies or our heads, where typically cell phones and routers are meant to be further away. Cell phone might go to our head temporarily, but not for a long time. So the practical radiation, meaning that the radiation that can get absorbed by our tissues, is very, very low on Bluetooth, and a little bit higher or a lot higher. It's it's a few orders of magnitude higher for Wi-Fi, and a lot higher than with an iPhone or with a cell phone. Okay. So this is just to give everybody a relative sense of what the risks are. I mean, using a cell phone can be risky if you are constantly on it and it's constantly next to your head. The modern antennas are designed so that the touch screen on a modern smartphone can actually protect our head a bit, but that's just from radiating this way. It still radiates outward, which it still puts a little bit of risk in there. All right, but our phone does act as a block with trying to keep our head safe. So that stuff has been updated from the original Hershey bar stuff from Nokia way back when. Nancy, you got a question? I'm sorry, I can't hear you right now.
Sorry. If I go out on my Android and go to the About, will that tell me what Bluetooth version
Yes, typically in the list, it will tell you what Bluetooth you have.
Okay.
If not, you might have to go to a website and look it up. But typically, if you have a phone that's been manufactured over the last 5 years, it's got the latest Bluetooth 5.x, and it has been updated through firmware. There are some new things in 5.4 that we can't just do in firmware. We actually have to have some new hardware to do it. But most of those features aren't really supported in cell phone yet. They are getting there. Okay, so
You said the latest is 5 point.
yeah, 5.x. 5.4 is the latest and greatest, but most everything's operating still at 5.1, 5.2.
Yeah, my Android certainly pesters me when a new software version, so I'm probably have to. Thank
Yeah,
you.
And Android is really pestering because Android is customizable by our providers, our cell phone or our network providers like Verizon, AT&T, Consumer Cellular, that type of stuff. And when they were doing that customization, they were really breaking the upgrade path for security. And Google has really campaigned and made it more difficult for them to change things that would break the security updates. So this way, everybody could get updates at the same time. So that's why the whole pestering thing has become de rigueur, because Google really kind of had to fight those guys on that. Okay. Diana.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sitting like a foot away from my router that's on my desk. Is that dangerous to be sitting that close to it?
I would say that's not healthy. It's not dangerous by any means, but the recommendation is for our Wi-Fi access points to be the parts with the antennas, okay,
Mm-hmm.
is to maintain about 10 feet away from it for yourself.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's the recommendation. But again, this is about time. If you're not sitting there for hours next to your router, it's probably not much of a risk. It's only when you got to spend a lot of time in this one position. But when
Well,
I
what if you
deploy,
have it? Oh,
go ahead.
sorry. What if you have it in a bedroom or something like that?
Yeah, and in a bedroom, try to put it, in a place that's further away from you.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times this is determined right by where our cable comes into our house. I mean,
Yeah.
that's kind of where we have to put it. So just try to put it as far away from you as possible. And again, the recommendation is 10 feet. So, opposite side of the room would be far enough away.
All
Now,
right. Thanks.
once it goes through a wall, then it's completely different. I mean, you can be very close to the opposite side of the wall because the wall attenuates a lot of the signal. Okay.
All right. Thanks.
Mhm.
Fine. One quick thing.
Go ahead.
So I'm in my bedroom. I see I'm probably less than 10 feet, but I have it in a cabinet and the door is closed. So I'm sure I'm fine.
I'm sure you're fine. Yeah, because as soon as it
Fine
goes
either
through
way.
a surface like that, you're a lot
Got it.
safer.
Thank you.
But
I
remember,
think
that
something
does
else.
affect distance too, because now you have it in a closet that's closed up. It's not going to go to other rooms as
No,
far.
I still get, yeah, thanks. I'm probably gonna die of something else before the radiation gets
I
me.
think all of us are.
Beta, this is
Yes.
Song. How
Hey,
about
Song.
cell phone? Cell phone, can you put it right next to you or what?
Yes, actually, and this is what I meant is that, talking on a cell phone sporadically is not much of a health risk. I've known some people that work constantly on their cell phone. I mean, business owners and stuff like that, where it was right next to their head. And that wasn't healthy 10, 15 years ago, or it was a higher risk then because the radiation of the cell phones back then was spherical. Okay. Now the radiation of cell phones is hemispherical because of the way the smartphone is designed. It has metal shielding. Even the what do you call it? The screen is metallized. You can see through it because it's very, very thin, but it's metallized, so it acts as kind of a barrier, to protect our head, and it radiates out in a hemisphere away from our head. But there still is some risk. It's low, but just don't talk for hours on your cell phone with it next to your head. If you're going to talk for hours on a phone, I recommend getting either wired or Bluetooth earbuds to do it for a long time. And for those of us that are using hearing aids, that's probably, you don't need earbuds or headphones because you can just do it straight to your hearing aids and it's very safe levels of radiation. Okay.
I have friends that like to charge their cell phone, in their bedroom.
Yes.
So is that safe or
Very much so. So if you're not talking on your phone, the radiation is almost non-existent because the radio is not engaged. Every once in a while, it'll pulse the cell tower just to say, "Hey, I'm still here. I can still receive a phone call." But that is very, very fast. I mean, we're talking microseconds, okay, of how quickly that lasts. And that's not going to be any danger to us at all.
all right? Thank you.
When we're talking on it, then it's full time talking to the tower at its power. So that's when we have to manage that risk. All right. And this is just a simulation. I don't want people to get frightened by this because this is not actual temperatures or anything. This is just a model that people put together. But the thing I want to show here is that we should not be putting Bluetooth headphones or something like that in our infants, toddlers, small children. And the only reason for that is just because of the ratio, the size, right, of the transmitter compared to the size of the brain at that time. You can see what that looks like here. In an adult, it's a small percentage of the brain that would be affected, so the risk is less, whereas a large part of the brain could be affected with a small child. And so again, just managing risk. I mean, if a kid's under 10 years old, let's not put Bluetooth transmitters in their head. All right, it's just not a good idea. Okay, so now let's talk about how Bluetooth has kind of evolved over the years. In version 1.x, that came out in 1999. I can't believe it's over 20 years now. This was this is the initial release, and it
5 years.
Yeah, it's really odd. I was like, my gosh, I didn't think that it was that long ago. And this is where all of the stuff was kind of proved out, and where they started doing things like frequency hopping and stuff like that. All of that came out in the different versions of 1.x. In 2.x, we added more speed, better security, and longer range. And I wouldn't say the security was meant in a way that it meant that nobody could hack it or nobody could listen into our conversations. The security was done in such a way that we could pair devices so that if we were right next to each other, I could be listening to one program, my wife could be listening to another, and we wouldn't know anything about it, okay? Because the Bluetooth would find different frequencies and different hopping things, so it would not interfere with each other. And that would all happen automatically. In 3.x, we actually added more bandwidth, but they were really trying to make this so that they could make audio at audiophile levels. In other words, very, very high bit rates. So they wanted to use Wi-Fi along with Bluetooth. The problem is that once you start switching to Wi-Fi on the same radio, boy, did it consume a lot of power, and batteries wouldn't even last an hour. Okay. I mean, Wi-Fi consumes a lot of power. So this was quickly updated within 1 year, and we went from 3.x to 4.x. It was like the Bluetooth people said, oh, we made a mistake. Don't pay attention to 3.x. We're going to 4.x. And this is where Bluetooth low energy was defined, because it made it so that Bluetooth was really now going to carve out its niche in the low energy area where we didn't use a lot of battery energy and where the radiation was very minimal, so we can have it right next to our body without much risk at all. Okay. Since they went to low energy, they said, well, now we can also have this beacon type of thing where when it's not being used to communicate data, that it could go to sleep. And then it could wake up like every 5 minutes and just announce, hey, I'm here, and look for the other devices around it and go back to sleep. And this is what really allowed it to be used for Internet of Things. This is how we could start putting temperature sensors, motion sensors, humidity sensors, smoke detectors that are battery operated and could still work with Bluetooth and smart homes and those types of things in the IoT world. Bluetooth 4 made that all happen. Bluetooth 5 is where they said, okay, we really want to make this so it does have better sound now. So we're going to double the bandwidth. We also want it to be able to get sound from multiple sources or be able to broadcast from one to many. So we could go to a theater now and listen to it as a hearing assisted device where many people could hear the program through Bluetooth. And it could even do many to many devices where we could share amongst a group of us. And this is something that I use all the time in motorcycle riding. If I'm going to meet a group of guys, we all have Bluetooth in our head. We can all talk to each other simultaneously through this. Okay. All right, so let's take a quick look at a video of how it works. Let me make sure I shared my screen properly with the audio. Got it.
Your phone and earbuds communicate with light. Not this light, not this light either. It's like a freaky sort of light. On the electromagnetic spectrum, the human eye can see 400 to 600 nanometers. Zoom out and you'll notice the human eye is actually blind. The light that Bluetooth uses is over here, specifically 121 millimeters through 124 millimeters. Not only is this light invisible to the human eye, but the waves are so long that it can pass through walls like how visible light passes through glass. Cool. But how does light allow me to listen to Shakira? Ones and zeros. Say 121 millimeters is purple and 124 millimeters is green. If your phone wants to send a 1 to your earbuds, your antenna turns purple. The antenna on the earbuds sees this and tells the microchip in the earbuds, hey, it's purple. And then the microchip writes down a 1. If the phone wants to send a 0, the antenna turns green and the same thing happens. This happens about 1,000,000 times a second. Okay, so now we know how to communicate. But this brings up about 1,000,000 problems. For example, if my bro is next to me listening to Taylor Swift while I'm hearkening to the songs of Shakira like a real man, how does my earbuds know to ignore the Taylor Swift and only play Shakira? Well, this problem has a couple of solutions. First of all, it's not actually just purple and green. There are 79 separate sections or channels within the range of purple and green. Each channel has its own specific wavelength for 1 and 0. So while you might be in channel 37, your bro could be in channel 73. But what if there are 158 different phones and earbuds playing music in the same place, 2 for each channel? First of all, the lag would be absolutely scandalous. But still, your earbuds would limp along playing the one and only Shakira and no one else's garbage. How? Well, this is when we finally talk about how your headphones and phone pair. Think of your earbuds as being a lock. When you click the pair button on said earbuds, it actively sends out a key through its antenna. Then, in your phone settings, you can see all the keys being sent out, and your phone can say, key number 37948, I choose you. What then happens is at the beginning of each package of 1s and 0s, your earbuds change its lock, and using the old key, it gives a new key to your phone. So, your earbuds technically can hear your bro's Taylor Swift playing if it's in the same channel, but since it doesn't have the correct key, it not only ignores it completely, but it actually has no idea how to read it because the key is an encryption for the rest of the message. Now another question arises. Couldn't someone just intercept and then decrypt of all of what's being transmitted between your phone and headphones? Well, some of the engineers probably watched Little Einsteins as a kid because there's a genius solution to this problem. Your phone and earbuds don't just stay in one channel. They do something called frequency hopping. They hop around from channel to channel and do this about 1,600 times every second. So an eavesdropper might be able to listen in for a teeny fraction of a second, but then you change channels and they would have no way of knowing what channel you went to. But then how does both your phone and earbuds know what channel to go to? Well, when your phone initially connects and says key number 37948, I choose you, within that message, it picks out a sequence and sends that information encrypted over to your headphones before any sound is even playing. This way, your phone and headphones are the only things that know what channel they're going to go to next.
Pretty cool. I love the way he explained that. And
It is so clever.
isn't it? And I thought it was very entertaining too.
It is. It is. Thank you for the yeah. If all technology were explained that way.
Right. And I love how that he just took it and like, hey, this is how it just goes. And he didn't just go down into all this other stuff. And I love frequency hopping. So where frequency hopping first came into vogue in America was when we started broadcasting HDMI signals for TV. We found that there were a lot of interference. So if we just stayed fixed on one channel, we could drop part of it, and it was very bad, experience for the viewer because they would get an interruption and then have to relink and okay, come back. So we could lose 1 to 3 seconds while all this is happening. But when it was frequency hopping, it was much more immune to interference. And here it's frequency hopping, so it's immune to interference. And we can put more listeners or more people side by side. And the frequency hopping makes it so it's less likely that we're going to jump into frequencies that might be on the same one, which makes everything really slow and yucky. Okay. So yeah, I really like the way he explained this.
Your phone and earbuds communicate.
Okay, so let's talk about just basic connections. So let's talk how we would connect an Android to headphones, okay? And this is a pretty good explainer for that.
Want to pair your Android with a Bluetooth device like a speaker or headphones? I'm Jessica from techboomers.com, and in this video, I'll show you how to pair Bluetooth devices with your Android smartphone. Now let's get started. To begin, open your Android device's settings. then select Connections. Tap Bluetooth. Make sure Bluetooth is enabled. If it's not, tap the switch in the top right corner to enable it. Now make sure the Bluetooth device you're trying to connect is powered on and discoverable. Some devices will have a button or instructions on how to put it into pairing mode so that it can be paired with a smartphone, tablet, or computer.
So I don't think that's obvious. When we want something to be discoverable, we kind of want to put it in pairing mode. Technically, those are two different things, but practically they're the same, meaning that we want it discoverable so that other things can connect to it. So let's just make sure that it's in pairing mode, okay?
Check the instructions that came with your device to find out how to do this. Once you've done so, you should see your Bluetooth device show up in the list of Bluetooth devices on your screen. If you don't see it, try tapping Scan in the top right corner. Then tap the Bluetooth device's name to pair it with your Android.
If this is an Apple device, they don't have a scan. So what you do is you turn off Bluetooth and turn it back on. Every time you do that and you turn it on, it'll do a scan. Okay.
At the bottom, tap Pair. Now you can use your Bluetooth device with your Android. If you've paired headphones or a speaker, your Android's audio should be coming through there now. If you're having trouble connecting your Bluetooth device with your Android, make sure it's powered on and fully charged, is close enough to your Android device that it's within range to be connected, and that it's not already connected to another device like your computer. If you can't turn Bluetooth...
That's the one that always trips me up. A lot of times I've tried to connect to Bluetooth devices. I'm like, it's right here. Why can't I get to it? Because it's still connected to another device, okay? Especially this happens to me when I help people upgrade from one phone to another and we're trying to move, say, hearing aid connections from one phone to another. It's like, why isn't this connecting? Well, because we haven't turned off the phone or we haven't released it from the old phone yet. So it's still connected there. All right. So just be aware that if we want to connect something, make sure it's not connected to the other device or another device.
Bluetooth on or can't connect to any Bluetooth devices, get in touch with the manufacturer of your Android device for assistance.
Okay, and that's the basics for how this works for any device. Okay. Now let's talk about connecting a phone to hearing aids. And this is from Phonak. So, but it's very similar for all hearing aids.
Step 1. Firstly, open the Settings app on your iPhone, go down to Bluetooth, open that, and then there should be a slider at the top. Slide that and make sure it's switched on and green. Step 2. At this point, you'll need to put the hearing aids into a pairing mode. Now, if you have the rechargeable version, simply put them in the docking station and take them out again. If you have the battery version, open and close the battery door.
So notice that in hearing aids, to get them into pairing mode, you put them on the charging station if they're rechargeable. I leave them there for 5-10 seconds and then pick them back up again, and they will immediately enter pairing mode. So now they'll start saying, hey, I'm looking for a connection. Okay. This is important though, make sure they're not connected to another device. Otherwise, they'll just connect to that device right away and you won't be able to pair with them. Okay, if we have a battery powered one where it's not rechargeable, you have to open the battery compartment, which turns it off. Then close the battery compartment and it'll come back on in pairing mode.
Step 3. The model of your hearing aid should then appear on screen. You'll only see one side, so don't worry if you don't see two hearing aids on there. Click on that and you should be instantly connected.
Okay, and this was one that always confused me too. I have a pair of hearing aids, but I can only see the right one or I can only see the left one depending on the manufacturer or the model. That is normal behavior. Typically, the Bluetooth only identifies one side, and then the hearing aids themselves will communicate on both sides. Okay, so it depends on how the manufacturer made it. Sometimes the Bluetooth can go to both devices, but typically it goes to one side, and then the communication is from hearing aid to hearing aid is handled by the device, okay? By the hearing aids themselves.
Step 1.
Oops. Okay, so let's
Did you know
go
your
to
Alexa devices can be used as Bluetooth speakers in addition to streaming music and other contents from the internet? The following steps apply to all Amazon Echo devices. After the Alexa device is set up properly with your Amazon account, start the Alexa app, tap Devices at the bottom. At the top of the page, tap Echo and Alexa. Pick the Echo Smart Speaker or display. In the Bluetooth Connections section, tap Connect a Device. The phone should show up in this list. If it doesn't, go to the Bluetooth settings on the phone. Then tap on the newly discovered Echo Smart device name.
Connected to iPhone 13. Now that you're paired, next time just say, connect my phone.
Alexa, connect to my phone.
Searching. Now connected to iPhone 13.
Okay, so we can use Alexa devices as a Bluetooth speaker. I typically don't do that. If I'm in, so I have Apple devices and Echo devices, the Alexa devices, also support Apple's AirPlay. And AirPlay is a much higher bandwidth, so it has better sound. Bluetooth for audio is still very compressed because it doesn't have as much bandwidth. So it's not even CD quality, all right? With Wi-Fi, I'm sorry, with AirPlay, I can get a CD quality sound. And typically I'll just do it through AirPlay. However, if not every device has AirPlay or a Wi-Fi capability. So if we have to go down and to say like whether it's an Android or an older iPhone, whatever, we could just make it so that, oh, we're going to do this through Bluetooth and we can still play it on our speakers. We just have to go through the Alexa app to do it. Okay. This is connecting to a car, and this is specifically a Lexus. Okay, so by going to the menu and saying you want to now search for devices, what did we do? We put the car in a discoverable and a pairable, in a pairing situation. Okay, it's now ready to look for other devices. Other devices can find it, and it's ready to pair. Okay. So Diana, did you have a question around this?
Yeah, because sometimes my car has a USB port so I can connect my phone to it, and then I see on the screen all the stuff that's on my phone. But sometimes it doesn't work. And is it because I also have Bluetooth turned on and I can see on my car screen that what a source is the iPhone, but it's not the same as the source from my USB port. So do I turn off Bluetooth in order to get the actual connection to work?
No, that's not going to improve that reliability. What's happening now? Do you have CarPlay in your phone, in your car? Yeah. So what's typically happening is that, especially as we start up a car, it's doing a lot of things all together. I mean, it's got to initialize the entertainment system. It's got to go and make connections. And then once it makes that connection, it has to realize, oh, this device actually works with CarPlay. Now I got to switch into a CarPlay mode. All that timing is super critical. So sometimes it misses it. So what we typically do is we get the car started. We wait till all of the entertainment system comes up. Then we plug in the phone. And that's a lot more reliable as far as it then, recognizing the phone. Oh yeah, this phone is a registered one. We've already, seen it before. Let's go and say, oh, it's an Apple. It does CarPlay. We'll switch to CarPlay. And that happens a lot more reliably. When we just plug it in and start the car, again, because of the startup stuff and the negotiations going on, to me, it's about 50-50. I
Okay.
get about 90% reliability when I wait for the car to just get to a steady state.
All right, thanks.
You're welcome. Nancy.
Just back up a quick question. Do any of you happen to have the Costco Philips hearing aids that you're working with an Android? I have a problem in where I'm listening to a book on tape and it just drops. And of course, the hearing aid people say that it's the phone, the normal. And I was just curious if that truly is the case, and if nobody else has it, that's fine. I just live with it, but it's somewhat annoying.
Now on your Android, yeah, because normally this is really robust, whether it's Android or iPhone. How are you connecting to your Android? Is it just is it something where you've already paired these together, or is it going through the app, or what?
So there's a couple things. The pairing is done by using the Philips app on my phone. So I do the pairing. And I don't even need to have that app running once things are paired. I only need to get the app if I wanted to change the volume or some feature, switch over to telecoil or whatever. So I usually just, get rid of it. So it stays, it just stays paired. I start my book on tape and I'm chugging along, and then it drops. And so at any rate, it's, the guys say, and I have a relatively new Android phone. I don't have the $2,000 version, but I have a relatively new one. So I was just curious if anybody else experienced it, or, because he'll often say that, oh, it seems to be, it doesn't happen as much with an iPhone. So
I haven't found that to be true. I've found that the Bluetooth connections are reliable, both Android and iPhone. If we're having a problem, one thing you could try, Nancy, is try to have your phone forget the device and then repair it, and see if that helps. Because sometimes the pairing is not robust for whatever reason, because we have an update on the phone or whatever, and so the security key gets lost between. So sometimes forgetting the device and redoing it will help.
Okay. Well, at any rate, and it could also be, I have the Costco version, which is a lot different than the $4,000 phonic version. So the hearing aid could be part, and I have tried to repair it. So, okay, thank you. I was just curious if it was I know there were people had it. Onward. Thanks.
No problem. I don't know if anybody else down here has, so we haven't seen that much on our side. All right. Let's try to connect now to a soundbar. And this is connecting a TV to a soundbar via Bluetooth. Typically, I don't recommend this, but if we're hiding wires, or we have a situation where we really need it to be wireless, this is an option. Usually, I connect my soundbar via HDMI, so that this way all the commands that are happening on the TV will also happen on the soundbar. So I can change the soundbar settings, I can change the volumes, I can change all those things. It just follows the TV, okay? When we do it through Bluetooth, basically you only have control of volume and turning it off and on, okay? One thing I do really like about the implementation of the 5.x protocol and all that is that once we connect a TV to a soundbar, in the old style, it would be hit or miss whether or not the sound and the video are fully linked. You know, sometimes they would get like either ahead or sometimes they get behind. And so it looks like we're watching an old Hong Kong kung fu movie where the lips and the things don't move in time. So with the new ones though, that actually sends like a test signal, which then tells the transmitter how long the latency is between receiving it and displaying it or producing it so that it can resync itself. So typically now when we put things like a sound bar or an external speaker, it either delays the sound or delays the video as needed to make them stay in sync, and we don't have to adjust it. Okay. All right, so now just to wrap things up real quick, the Bluetooth standard, when it first came out, it was about connecting device to device, and it was a single stream. So like if we looked at it, even in a pair of devices, you could connect from one device, and then that device would have to connect to another one, okay? Because again, it was one-to-one. Well, that's changed now. With LE, the low energy audio, it's multi-stream or multi-device. They called it dual audio when it first came out. And it could actually connect to the left and right independently rather than just doing one side. All right. The newest version of this is something called Aura. And so AuraCast allows us to now walk into, say, museums. And in museums, we can either hear through the Bluetooth on our phones or the Bluetooth in our headsets or the Bluetooth in our hearing aids and listen to a guided tour, listen to whatever they're broadcasting out. If we're in airports, we can actually, the airports that have AuraCast will allow us to hear announcements and those types of things through our headphones, hearing aids, etc. And this is what that's like.
But perhaps the thing that everybody is most excited about when it comes to this new form of low energy audio Bluetooth is something called AuraCast Broadcast Audio. AuraCast will allow hearing aid users to share their audio with other hearing aid users or even earbud users, or tap into a transmitted Bluetooth signal inside of a public venue. And if you happen to find yourself in a public venue like an airport, school, or museum, you will be able to share the audio of that venue with anyone else who has AuraCast enabled devices.
Okay, so what they're just saying is that when we go into these venues now, we can use them as assisted hearing, listening devices, so that can be broadcast over Bluetooth. I still haven't heard this, so I don't know what the quality is. AuraCast is supposed to be better because Bluetooth is allowing now multiple channels to be bonded together, meaning that they can do multiple channels simultaneously with different amounts of data, if you will. So now we can do higher bandwidth. All right, that's the same way that our our cable modems work. The way they got faster was by bonding a whole bunch of channels together. The same thing's happening with Aura. So now we can go to theaters, houses of worship, schools, tours, museums, etc., and we can get these devices that can receive it and supposedly be CD quality or better. Okay. I haven't listened to that yet. My favorite experience with hearing aids and earphones right now is still an FM broadcast as far as its sound quality, but supposedly Aura is changing that. Okay. Nancy, go ahead.
How does this differ from the telecoil?
So with telecoil,
is in some of these venues, and then I have that feature on my hearing aid. I haven't really tried it that much, but
correct. I don't know if you've noticed, but when you're using telecoil, the closer you are to the coil, the louder it is. Okay. And the less noise there is because the signal to noise ratio, right, between what's there. So the further you get away from the coil, the quieter and the more underlying noise you get with it. With Bluetooth, if you pick it up, it's the same quality everywhere. It does not degrade by distance. If you can get it, then it gives you the same quality everywhere. So that's the advantage over telecoil. However, this means that we're going to now have Bluetooth enabled and Aura enabled hearing aid devices. So the trade-off is that telecoil is going to be our least common denominator. It's been around for decades, whereas the Bluetooth is relatively new.
Yeah,
Okay.
this is all okay. All right. And for now, you need one of these devices until the hearing aids also start having that compatible Aura.
Yes, and a lot of venues right now aren't using Aura. It's too new.
Right.
But
yeah.
I think in the next 2 years, we'll see a lot of theaters start doing this where, if you ask them for a hearing assisted thing, they'll give you a loop like this where you wear it. It will receive
Yeah.
the Aura cast, to this, and then it can work with your earphones through telecoil. That's what this one's doing. Or, you can just get it directly to your hearing aids. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, the last one I want to end on is in Bluetooth 4, one of the last versions of it before it went to 5, they started putting a directionality signal in it so that we can now have a broadcast, a beacon, if you will, of a Bluetooth signal, and the receiver can know the angle of it that it came in, so we can now say, oh, that came from over there. So now it can help us find things. And where people have taken advantage of this is with those tags that we can put on devices so that now we can find them. The most popular one being Apple's AirTag. So this is what that looks like.
All right, here we go. I'm here at the market. Take the AirTag off and then lay it down over here, and that'll simulate me dropping my keys, walking.
So you notice he has a fob on his key ring that has an AirTag on it.
Around the parking lot here and then having to come back and find my keys. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to lay it right over here by this barrel. Let the iPhone show me where to go. Okay, I just got an update come through that says keys left behind.
So when in the iPhone world, when you're using AirTags, when you get too far a distance from a tag, like if I have it in my backpack and I left my backpack behind accidentally, when I get like 40, 50 feet away, I'll say, hey, you left this behind. I'll get an actual notification like that. So this is what happened to him.
Gives you the address, so you click on it, and when I click on it, look what it shows. It gave me an address. It gives me the option to play the sound or find directions. So let's do directions. So let's go ahead and let's hit directions. Now let's see what I'm gonna let it lead me straight to it. So you see what it's doing. It's gonna guide me to it. So it gave an exact location there on where the keys are.
And when you're far enough away from it, it gives you an integration with the map to help take you there. When you get closer to it, it changes modes. I'll show that in a moment.
And now it says I've arrived.
So he went to find nearby.
Range. Check that out. Nothing. You see what it just did? So it's pointing at those barrels. And as I'm walking away from the barrels, look what it's doing. And then, what's this? So now I can hit.
So the AirTags have a speaker on them. So when you get close to them or when you want to, you can hit play the sound, and it'll play the sound. You can see it just picks up the ring up here. Okay, so these are really nice to have. So put them on key rings, put them on wallets, put them on our phones. And well, we don't even really need one on our phones. Our phones have the finding things in them automatically. Let's see here. What else can we put these in? Our luggage. There's a lot of stuff that is really, remote controls. We lose those all the time around our house. And it's really nice to have an air tag on them and be able to find them so easily. Typically just making the sound is enough to find them in the cushions or whatever. But if we can't do that because it's muffled or it's in a different room, we can find it through, the pointer, which would bring us close enough that we can hear the sound. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's all Bluetooth.
Ginger just barked to remind you can put them on doggies collars too.
Yeah, exactly. And I've seen dog collars with them on, which is really cool. So, if your dog gets lost or whatever, somebody can actually report it, or you can go and try to find your dog with that. So, I think it's a really cool application of it.
So, excuse me, one more interrupt. So if you have it on your phone, then you just need to use some other device with the app in order to find your phone?
Actually, your phone has this built in because your phone already has all the Bluetooth transmitters and stuff in it, and it has all the other smarts. So our phones in the Apple world, our phones, our iPads, and our laptops all have this built in, and we just simply go to Find My app on another device, and it'll help you find it.
Okay, because
Yeah.
just watching there, it appears that you're using your phone to direct you to whatever the lost thing is. And so
Correct.
if it's
So you
your
need another
phone that
device
you're
to do
looking
that.
for, you need
Yep.
exactly you need another device. Thanks.
Yes. So I have left my iPad at church several times, and I'm like, oh shoot, where'd I do that? And I will go to Find My on my phone. It'll tell me the address. I'm like, oh yeah, it's at church. So I know where to go pick it up. Don, you had a question?
Yeah, you mentioned about the limited range of Bluetooth. If that's the case, what's the range of the AirTag? I mean, how far does it have to be away from your phone before it can detect its location?
Right. So the way AirTags work is typically it works by the beacon. So it's strongest within 30 feet. Typically it can go out to, they say, 50, 60 feet and capture something. And they will actually piggyback off other iPhones just walking by. Okay, so what will happen is that the Bluetooth on the tag will announce itself to another iPhone walking by, which then goes back to Apple, and Apple says, oh, okay, I received this location code for this thing, and it keeps a track of that. That's just part of the service. So then when you've lost it and you go, uh-oh, I can't find my keys, you could be several miles away. You can go to it and it'll say, oh, it's at this address, last seen. Then you get the address, follow the map, and when you get close enough, it'll then activate. So like with about 50, 60 feet, it'll then do the nearby thing and let you, follow the angles and the arrow until you get there.
So you depend on being in a sort of a public place where there are other people with cell phones. So let's say you're hiking in the woods somewhere, and there's not too many people hiking by, then you're kind of out of luck then because of the limited range of the Bluetooth.
That's correct, because it can't transmit to anything. It doesn't have a powerful enough transmitter to get to a satellite or something out there, right? So this works really.
It's a piggyback system that allows that added distance. Then you
exactly.
Okay. Sounds
so
good. Thank you.
It works great in urban environments, not so good in rural environments.
Okay.
All right, here we go.
Any other questions? All right, so that's our update on Bluetooth and how to connect it to different things. So we'll see you folks on Wednesday. Cheers.
Very helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.